So good evening and welcome to day 226 at GGY, our usual roundtable discussion. Today we have quite a turnout, I wonder why. So we have Chiranta, who is our happy warrior. Happy belated birthday wishes, Chiranta. Today he's behind the scenes today. And we have our usual, our unwavering gang who turn up week after week, even when most people have retreated to their creature comforts. You guys turn up, so thank you so much. So today we have Dr. Harsha Silva with us, Member of Parliament from Colombo, and former Minister of Economic Reform and Public Distribution of the government of Sri Lanka. An economist by training, is now a prominent member of the opposition and chairs the Parliamentary Committee on Public Finance. Harsha also founded the much-loved Suvasario ambulance service. I think you're very proud of that, aren't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Harsha has a PhD in economics from the University of Missouri and has had executive training at both MIT and Harvard. Harsha is a royalist. I hope you don't mind me mentioning that.
No, that's fine.
Are you still proclaiming yourself a royalist?
Of course, absolutely. Just because one guy went there doesn't mean that rest of us need to disown our school.
And you're married with 2 children, and we often see you passing by GGY, you wave at us.
Yes.
You've actually joined us on a couple of nights as well, including on the 9th when you spoke to us.
Yes.
And that day we went live, and I think our highest viewership was for that particular live to this day. Maybe we'll break it today, we'll see. We'll see. So Chris, you want to kick things off? You want to ask something, no?
First thing first,
Yeah.
I thought I'd ask, we are doing this is a good governance movement, Harsha.
Yeah.
So we're trying to reach more people.
Yeah.
It's something new.
Yeah.
So we've been doing it for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
But it's new to a lot of people. So we thought we like to get more viewers. So we are wondering whether you'd like to emulate Governor of the Sabaragamuwa province, Navin Dissanayake, and do a small TikTok video.
Absolutely. Sorry, I can't act like that.
But
That's crazy.
You have to blow a kiss and wink or something.
No. But I think after he became governor, I think his
Yes,
wife
no.
told, yeah.
But Harsha, we are very disappointed by that. Because we used to...
We enjoyed it.
All right. TikTok video, and he has stopped that.
Right. But actually, politics aside, I think we often acknowledge that we need more people of your caliber in politics. I mean, party aside. I mean, generally when we ask, who are the members in Parliament that, we would like to see more of, your name comes up along with a few others. So, so we're very happy that you're here.
Thanks.
To begin with, softball question.
Yeah.
What motivated you to get into politics? I mean, you're an economist, maybe you would have had more lucrative opportunities in the private sector. But what motivated you to get into politics, and do you regret it?
Absolutely, I don't regret it at all. Do more, and I want others like yourselves also to get involved. I have broken my life into 4. One is to get yourself an education, which I did, and then is to do something for yourself and for your family and make sure that you are able to take care of them, which I have done. And third is do public service, which is what I'm doing now. Next is to put my feet up and drink beer and just enjoy life, which is yet to come. So I've been lucky in that I've been able to achieve the things I wanted to thus far. I mean, I come from a middle-class family. Both my parents were public servants. My father is 90 years old. Unfortunately, he fell and broke his hip last week.
Oh, so sorry.
I had to bring the 1990 ambulance and take him, and he's fine now. He's back home after surgery. My mother died at the age of 40. My sister and I were very small. My father brought us up. My sister went on to become a consultant pediatrician. She works for the government. One reason that motivated me was to try and see if I could create a country where what happened to my mother won't happen to other people. In that, it was a time when, as a cancer patient, she couldn't find medicine. But unfortunately, it's happening again.
Yes.
You know, so it's something that has driven me, and perhaps the reason why I founded what I believe is Sri Lanka's most efficient public service, the 1990s Suasare, is also part of that whole want to be able to do things for people in this country. And like you asked me whether I'm proud of it, I'm absolutely proud of it. Because every single day we take 1,050 people to critical care every day, from KKS to Rondra. We run 26,000 kilometers every day. We operate 335 ambulances, and WHO tells me that in the developing world they can't find anything to beat us. So which gives us an immense sense of accomplishment and pride. And our response time island-wide is under 14 minutes. In Colombo, it's under 8 minutes. And I'm working on some other sort of innovations. I must give due credit to Dumindra Ratnayaka, who actually is the yin and the yang. You know, I play one role, he plays another role in running the operation, and Sohan De Silva, who works day and night, and the 1,500 staff that we have. In fact, my Facebook page has the advertisement. We are hiring another 480 odd people. Finally, we got the approval to go ahead because we are going to expand our fleet and so on. So all these things, I feel that, you know, it's my responsibility to try and help this country. So, but I must tell you, as a little boy, my father's neighbor was an MP. And I used to tell him, Uncle Merrill, can I come and, visit Parliament? His name was Mr. Merrill De Silva. He was the minister, MP for Min area. He was C.P. De Silva's brother. And those people had bought land near my father's house, and I used to know these people. And as a child, I used to go and sit in the gallery and watch these people speak.
Okay.
So people thought I was mad because kids my age never did that.
Yeah.
And you know, those days you had those little autograph books.
Yes.
You remember people used to.
You had one of those, did you?
I had one of those.
Okay.
And I had all these people, sign my autograph book, and so that was like a little side thing. But no one in my family had sort of done politics except somebody way back. My grandmother's brother. I don't think that counts, but he was he did politics after he retired, and he was a senator and he was a minister of justice for some time. He was a king's counsel. He was a respected lawyer, but got into public service for a little while. But then, so I'm the only other person in my extended family who's ever done politics. So many things contributed. Yeah.
Great. So since you brought it up, sorry, you want to say something?
I just want to ask you, you mentioned your sister is a pediatrician.
Yes.
How did she cope with this medical crisis?
Oh, extremely tough. I mean, it started from the pandemic. One day she called me in utter desperation. We were having dinner. He said, I need your help. I don't have for my, she runs the ward in Panadura. We need oxygen, we need these wall sockets and things like that. And before end of dinner, we were able to raise about 1 million rupees from friends and relations. And then our Rotary Club got involved. You remember, you and I, and then you guys, then Billy, Bari.
So basically have to depend on the kindness of strangers to keep
Rotary,
our medical services going.
Rotary Club of Colombo Regency brought in, I think,
Which Harsha is a founder member.
charter member.
Charter member.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we raised the money and we did that. But then what happened subsequently is with this crisis, it's tough because, you run out of medication. And there's never-ending line of kids that one needs to look at.
And operations have to be postponed.
So it's tough. So I also need to mention other people came and supported the Panadura Hospital. Sandhya Salgadu was one person who, and for a long time the Salgadu family has been helping that hospital. So there's been lots of people who came in to support.
But I mean, now that we're on the subject, I was going to talk about this later. How does it make you feel that, in the face of overwhelming evidence that there is a health crisis in this country, when Parliament actually votes to save the skin of one of their own and essentially deny the fact that there's a crisis in this country? I mean, when the no confidence fail, that's essentially those people saying that there is no crisis. How does that...
Yeah, this is the partisan nature of, parliamentary politics. And we never expected to win. We brought it up because it was a matter that needed to be exposed and discussed.
Right.
And it's out there in the open. I mean, you can say, look, it doesn't exist, but, people know what the reality is.
People are dying.
People are
dying.
They face the consequences almost every day.
Yeah, I mean...
the ambulance service quantifiably saves lives, but after you get to a hospital, then what happens?
I know. So the crisis obviously exists.
Right. So moving on from that, we saw the atrocities in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and all of that, and the president made a statement saying that it's going to affect our cost of living and the price of fuel and all that. Do you see, the impact of this escalation in the Middle East, affecting us here? I mean, how deep is that impact going to be felt by the people here?
I mean, it depends on how long this is going to continue, right? I mean, today Syria's attacked Golan Heights and they're going to attack Syria, and Lebanon is also looking at, getting involved in this. So if it expands beyond the West Bank, obviously there's going to be repercussions, right? And how that is going to impact countries like Sri Lanka is pretty clear, and that is cost of energy, right?
But neither of those countries are oil producers significantly, right?
That is true. That is
it
true.
The shipping lames, or how does it affect?
I mean, already in one day, didn't oil go up like, a few dollars? This is a lot of, the Middle East gets entangled in, that's why I said it depends on how long and how spread out it's going to be, right?
Right.
So shipping lines is obviously one issue that needs to be protected. And, what happens is, these shocks, it can be this particular situation today, but it can be something else tomorrow. Countries need to be able to cushion these shocks, right? So that is why you have to have, space to maneuver. And like, for instance, say now we are supposed to have a fuel price stabilization fund. So just because global prices go up by a few dollars doesn't mean you pass on that entire increase to the consumer. Just like if there is a drop, you don't give the entire benefit to the consumer. Part of that is held in a stabilization fund to be used to sort of smoothen out the spikes, right? The buffers. So that is how countries deal with these situations, and you need to have sufficient quantities of foreign exchange that is available to be used in situations like this, because we live in a world that goes through all these, unexpected situations all the time, right? So we need to be able to absorb those shocks.
So are we in a position to absorb it? So
Certainly not.
No, we're not. So any impact will be directly felt by...
Yeah, because we have, let's take the oil price stabilization fund. It is empty, right?
Right.
I mean, there was some money put in there, but we were told that they used that money to do something else. So there is nothing in the stabilization fund, so the cost will have to certainly be borne by us.
Yeah. So also, I think to a certain extent that conflict there along ethnic lines is a sort of like a cautionary tale for us, I feel. I mean, I know we're not quite there yet, but we did come through a 30-year war and all of that. So, I mean, right now, there's this story that we are seeing in Batiklo with the land grabs. I think, from the parliamentarians, it's really Shanakian, Rasamanikam and the TNA that's been highlighting this. We don't see anything even in the mainstream media about this particular issue where I think a temple is supposed to be built there. I think certain, grazing land being taken over, cattle are being slaughtered, and so on. Why is it that we don't see the opposition uniting to kind of highlight a cause like this? Because I think there is a platform that the opposition has that the activists don't have. I mean, activists are now actively being put down. We really simply don't have a voice. That's why we have to try to get the message out in ways like this. A more vocal sort of support for things like... Sorry, just if I can just add one more thing.
Yeah.
Also, we saw the leader of the opposition sort of like pandering a little bit. He said he's going to build temples and so on. Do you worry that that populist politics just plays into this current climate where these ethnic divisions are being exploited by certain political entities and so on?
Well, this is a tough one to answer. I'll take it in sort of two. One is the particular issue of Shanak, and he raised an issue that day in Parliament, and they protested, and we all joined. Like for instance, the guy who sits next to me, Radhakrishnan, because it was a Tamil issue, I'm ashamed that I didn't understand what the signs said.
Right.
And I asked Shanakam, what's this about? Because the protest was in Tamil. And then he said, Harsha, this is about this. And then we because it came as a surprise. Right? Because if you are told early, then they will not let you do that. Yeah. So then, we kind of joined in. Our guys went down to the well and, supported them. And when he was shouted at by Premanath Dolawat and Pillayan, our guys did, physically even support Shanakan to deal with that. Now, that's one issue. Now, what has to happen is, whether it is a Batikalo issue or a Jaffna issue or a Mathara issue, we should all try to unite to take issues together. And still what has happened is Muslim issues are separate, Tamil issues are separate, Sinhalese issues are separate, Catholic issues are separate, things like that. So we need to build a common sort of a grouping to deal with such matters, even though they don't necessarily impact us as individuals. I mean, the grazing land issue in Batiklo doesn't impact me, but then that's an issue that is obviously faced by a certain segment of the population, and we need to be supportive of that. But what I do see is more and more these regional issues are becoming sort of no longer regional issues, which is good, right? I mean, now actually people like Shanakan, I must actually commend, because while he takes issues of his own area, Batiklo, he fights for issues that don't necessarily concern, quote unquote, his people.
Right.
And those bridges are being built. And there are multiple instances where the TNA and the SJB supported each other in protesting against various issues that were detrimental to the general population.
Yeah.
The second part of your question is a more complex one, and how is religion being used in, populist ways to sort of win votes, weaponize, yeah. And this has happened right throughout, right? And it is going to continue to happen to some extent. And it is not only happening in this country, it's happening across the world. Right? I mean, if you go to America and look at the way Trump is campaigning, he's specifically trying to appeal to a particular group of people, right? And whether it is in Europe or whether it is look at India, what's happening in India, right? So I think there is a human element in that which will never go away. Right? So if I try to tell you here that we are completely devoid of that and that none of our members will be pushing even slightly that agenda, I would be lying.
So it's basically the vote bank politics. I mean, is that how you approach it? I mean, I understand as a major political party, you have to take certain populist stance, let's say, because that's your constituency, right? Or that's part of your constituency. But isn't there a way by supporting these efforts, taking a more prominent role in addressing these issues in the East and so on? Right now, so many things have come to light, including an excavation of a mass grave. Now, nobody highlights it, not even the media. I think couldn't the opposition take a more leading role in that? Because it seems only the activist community really gets worked up and starts talking about it.
No, I don't think that is absolutely correct, because there are instances that we do take up these issues. Sometimes the media, not always, as you know, are not necessarily balanced in the way they take the message to the people, right?
No people like Harsha, it's not balanced.
Yeah, it's not balanced. So unless you have your own sort of channel and things like this, and sort of get the message out the way you want without any editing by anybody else, then you can get it out. But I mean, we as a political party have stood firm. Now, for instance, when the Muslim burial issue came, right, during the pandemic, it was only the SJB that stood as a political party, right? I recall with our leader, when certain people told him, don't do it, because that will be sort of go against your...
All of you all attended the protest at Kannada?
Absolutely. I was there. I stood strong. And we said, look, it doesn't... So it's not that we don't, I mean, we do, and I appreciate your point that perhaps we can do more, but, activism is activism. You have some issue now. I mean, I am actually, I can't believe that this is 226 days, right? And when you guys started, near my house, I thought, look, this will die down in a couple of weeks, but it hasn't. That takes courage, that takes commitment, that takes dedication, and I applaud all of you, for all what you're doing. And I don't think any of the Gotago other groups, at least in this way, have survived, And, I think your message is clear, and I hope that, your objectives of, your group would sooner than later become reality.
We hope so too. Because we'd love to be spending more time at home, right? Than do this, but yeah, we are still here. But so moving on from that, so anything else anybody want to add to that?
I just don't want you to go away with this thought that I am supporting the kind of politics. But what I'm saying is there is always going to be some level of, pandering to particular groups in politics. That's never going to go away. But it is for people like us liberals, people who don't necessarily, belong to or subscribe to one particular ethnicity-based or religious-based position. For us to be able to unite and bring people together. So it's our responsibility, and I take that seriously, and I try to do it in my own politics.
Right. Anything else on that particular topic? So we'll move on to something similar. So we've seen a whole host of bills that have already been passed, others been tabled. The scenario seems to be that something that is almost like the worst case scenario is presented first, and then there are court challengers, there's the hue and cry, and then it's watered down, and then it goes into parliament, and with the existing composition, it gets passed. Now, with these bills also, Harsha, we saw, like, for example, the Bureau of Rehabilitation bill. I mean, we appreciate that you don't have the numbers in parliament. For that particular vote, I think very few members were even present. I think it passed with 30 votes or something like that. I think about 11. Doesn't that send like a message to the country that the opposition is not that fully engaged?
That I take the blame, and we should have organized better. Sometimes these types of things happen, and I am not trying to run away from what the mistake we made. It is not that we were not opposed to it. We spoke, against it vociferously, but we knew it was going to go through because they had the numbers. But you're right. We should have stayed back and shown that that we were taking a stand. And I do accept the criticism that is coming our way on that. I was not for a moment that we agree with it. It's just that on that particular time the vote was taken. There wasn't, not enough.
Nominations was going on at the
That is correct, because we were all at nomination meetings trying to get people. That is.
I mean, we know that it's going to.
Was this put on purpose at a time like that? Could it?
Even if, but we knew it was happening, right?
Right. Now we had even things like the anti-corruption bill. Is that the best possible bill that could have been passed in that parliament? Because we see things like, there's no, it doesn't have a retroactive effect on past crimes. I mean, that is something that we highlight here almost week after week. There is simply no accountability for anything that has happened in the past. And consequently, we don't see anybody editing their behavior to change this. So don't you think...
True. I'll give you an example. When the 19th Amendment was being debated, and it was late in the night, and we wanted to get it passed. And one thing we wanted included was when MPs shift parties, and after natural justice, they are removed from a particular party, that they have time to fight their case, because there has to be some sort of, like I said, natural justice. So they have their case. But instead of going to the lower courts, you go directly to the Supreme Court, and then you have 2 months for that case to be heard and ruling given.
Right.
Now, that was the amendment we were going to bring into the Constitution. Now, the government at the time, we were a minority, 40-odd members. We were still, we had Maithripala Sirisena had won. But the numbers were on the other side. They said, no, we will never agree. So if you want this, you don't have the 19th. If you drop it, we will agree. So what do we do? Situations like that, we said, okay, fine. We are willing to compromise. We will scratch it. You give us the vote.
Right.
So there is a lot of horse trading that happens like that when legislation is finally approved. So all what we want, 99% of the time we don't get. And once a professor told me, Harsha, in public policy, of course this is not public policy, this is legislation. and even applies here in a democratic structure when you want to get something through. First best solution you never gonna get. Second best solution, very, very unlikely.
Yeah.
Third best solution, unlikely. Fourth best solution, perhaps. Right. So let's settle for that. So that is how it works.
Right. I mean, you talked about constitutional changes and so on. I mean, right now we see a host of very regressive bills and things like that that directly affect our constitutional rights. And we also see we see the three pillars of our democracy now sort of on shaky ground, because the executive is rather overpowering. I mean, it usurps the authority of the legislature, being the finance minister and the defense minister. I mean, the power of the purse is meant to be with the parliament, with the people. So, and also simply ignoring, judicial sort of pronouncements and so on. In that climate, we see rather than the opposition uniting, we see the opposition sort of at each other's throats a little bit. Maybe because there was an election coming, we saw an escalation of that. Sometimes it frustrates us that the opposition isn't more united, like the NPP, the SJB, the TNA, SLMC. I mean, as a united opposition, don't you think you will have more of a platform and can make more of an impact? Because otherwise, it's democracy that's backsliding, and I think the impact of that will be for all to see, right?
No, but on these matters, I think the opposition has always been united.
Do we see that?
On these,
what do you think?
Particular things, yes, but there is sniping also. I mean,
yeah, we see that a lot. I mean, is
that is true, but I would hesitate to agree with you.
Yeah.
Chaminda, that we sort of split on these bills. We have split on sort of the IMF conditions, ideology, but on these matters we have been united. So everyone together, I may be wrong, maybe I don't recall any instance where we disagreed on these sort of anti-democratic pieces of legislation.
But even like when you look at the protests against it, it seems generally the activist community who get in front of all of that.
Does the government have numbers to pass it?
See, the government has numbers to pass any bill.
Any bill, yeah.
Right.
Seats, no?
I mean, yeah, they have the number. I mean, 113 they got no on Kehelia's matter.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
113 they got. So I don't think the online bill is going to go through. I don't think they will sort of shoot themselves in the head right now, because they see the kind of opposition that this has generated already.
And probably internationally too, no? Won't look good for them at all.
Yeah, and big tech is not going to accept.
Right. There is a danger that they might leave if this is.
Yeah, they haven't really come here to leave, no. In the sense, I know exactly what happened at the meeting with Nick Clegg, and the plan was for the president to request him to make an investment in the port city. But then that morning, this thing came to Parliament. So the whole conversation was not about Meta making a first investment in Sri Lanka, but about how would you deal with this, because if this is there, don't even talk to us about any investment.
Anything else. In fact, we also got involved as a group, and we made a challenge. As you want to just explain what we did?
So 8 members of the GGY group, we filed a petition, a complaint against the online safety bill. And with the help of a lawyer, our case is being heard on the 20th, Friday the 20th. And so I think it's good for us to have that out there, that we are against this bill.
Yeah, I mean, the bill by itself, I think there are some things that need to happen.
Yes.
For instance, harassment, bullying, online bullying.
There are a few things that
there are some things that need to happen. right? But then you can't use that to sort of steamroll everything.
Right.
So that is where the problem is.
Right. The intent of the bill seems very clear because we had a discussion with Dr. Gehan Gunatilaka, and he said if the concern was online safety, then it would have come through some regulatory body rather than it came from the security infrastructure.
Right.
And also it completely ignores things like phishing attacks, like obvious online threats.
Okay.
It doesn't mention any of those things,
Yeah.
and it's purely almost laser guided towards silencing people like
Like
activists
us.
and people who are speaking up.
Speaking up.
Yeah, I mean, how can the president appoint a commission which is at least on the face of it, people can say, look, these are independent commissions because the Constitutional Council approves the names. But in this one, there is no.
No, the president appoints.
The president, that's what I'm saying. Right, in this case, and that commission will determine.
Right. I mean, we body for things like comedy and satire and parody. I mean, already the ICCPR, which is supposed to be a good piece of legislation that we all agree should be there, was abused.
Yeah.
So, bad law in bad faith in the hands of people who have not good intentions.
I mean, this. I have the original draft. Right, this original draft was not by.
Actually, now nobody's owning the bill.
I know even the Minister of Public Security has said that they're not involved with it, right?
Yes.
Chirag, your question?
Yeah, but.
What do you mean, the online bill?
Yeah.
Well, basically it was gazetted by the order of the Minister of Public Security. And I saw on the 7th that they had put his Tirana analysis paper has put that they are going to do consultations. And when I called today, the Minister's secretary actually. Secretary has a private secretary, okay? And the secretary told me that there has no such meeting has taken place. I mean, there were photographs of the meeting, but the ministry denies that there was a meeting. I don't know who met who. Anyway, and I want to raise this matter to you.
Yeah.
Now they are going to say this committee is going to judge what is truth and the false, right?
Yeah.
What is truth and what is false.
Yeah.
If you remember, you were talking about the COVID issue and how SJB was there for the COVID cremation matter.
Yeah.
I was arrested for saying COVID doesn't spread in water.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I was arrested and there's still a case ongoing. And the minister of Kehelia is coming and telling, we were misled, blah, blah, blah. And the fact of the matter, the background fact is, the state apparatus misled the Supreme Court. I was a petitioner to allow burial. I was one of the petitioners. I and Oshal Hera, we were petitioners. And as Catholics. And then we wanted burial. And then what the state did was they came and misled the Supreme Court and said, no, this is regard to national security, we can't allow somebody buried. And then they will come and then they will dig out the body and take a saliva and then go and plant it somewhere. And my God. And they misled the whole thing, right? And then, if that is the case, if the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka can be misled by the state, and there is no, till this date, after that statement, I think the Chief Justice should have called for an inquiry. But it has not happened. How, if they can blatantly mislead the Supreme Court and get away with it without any contempt of court, what is the legal redress people will have for truth? The real truth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want
Objective
to.
truth.
I don't want to.
I mean, truth is a process.
Yeah.
How can you say
because it's in the legal, it's a legal matter.
Yeah.
I think.
Because we might get into contempt of court matters if we get into that argument. But on this, I have here the original draft of this bill dated May 12, 2021. And it is called the Protection from Online Falsehood and Manipulation Bill. That is what it was called.
Cool.
And it was written by a bunch of private lawyers working with the legal draftsmans. I can share this with you later.
Does the name include Manoj Gamani? Bunch of private lawyers?
I don't want to mention names here, but names are here.
Actually, this was presented by the Ministry of Public Security?
No, no.
This is the earlier one.
Original one
It's
is
2021.
Minister of Justice.
Ministry of Justice.
Justice. That's
So
what
whoever
Tilala
was the Minister of Justice in May 2021.
21?
Ali Sabri.
21.
Ali Sabri.
Ali Sabri.
So this was done during Gotabaya Rajapaksa's time. It's 12/5/2021.
Right.
So that is the genesis of
Yeah.
it.
So I know it's sensitive to talk about court matters and all of that.
Yeah.
So just moving on from that, anything else to add to that particular thing? Okay. There's two pieces of news about the courts behind you.
Yeah.
One about the Mulatif judge, the threats to him, and his departure, and also which is a negative thing that's happening with the judiciary. And then we also have the Supreme Court judgment about the SLMC member, where landmark judgment affirms power of political parties to expel members.
Yeah.
So. How do you judge the state of the judiciary right now? I mean, there's a protest by the lawyers recently as well. Do you worry that, in our view, I think in the majority view is that that is really the only pillar
The last
of
stand.
democracy that is still sort of available as any form of redress, for us.
Yeah.
And also the Supreme Court judgment, that will have a direct impact on the SJB.
Yeah.
And I believe that case is coming up in the next few days. What are your views on the judiciary and that particular thing and how it will impact the SJB?
Yeah. The first one, I was quite open about my position on this. And I tweeted saying that deeply troubled by Judge Sarwan Raja's resignation due to alleged threats on the particular matter. Intimidation from certain sections of government is disheartening. President's silence on this issue is concerning for our democracy. That's what I said.
I'm going to interrupt you a little bit.
Yeah.
We know very well that your view aligns with most right-thinking people. But I think what Chaminda was trying to ask was, we didn't see the SJB's view on this. We didn't see the NPP JVP's view on this matter.
SJB's view, the leader of the opposition made a statement in Parliament. He made a statement in Parliament, and we wanted an investigation on this. There are two sides to this story, it looks like.
Okay.
And, I don't want to pass judgment, but an investigation needs to be undertaken because when Honorable Sumandiran brought it up, there was an immediate sort of reaction from Minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, accusing Sumandiran of, saying at one point the Supreme Court should be sent home or something like that, and said he was mentioning a name of a particular judge, to which he said, no, I didn't, etc. But there is something that is, something that is rotten in there. I don't know what it is. Yeah. And if, according to the judge, he was threatened because he gave a particular order, and also previous judges had given the same order on the same matter apparently, why this is happening needs to be independently verified.
But we also have an MP in Parliament basically won't accept a judgment from a Tamil judge. I mean, isn't that a violation of parliamentary privilege?
He is an absolute racist.
Yes.
That man is an absolute racist.
Who got the highest number of preference votes from Colombo?
Absolutely. Who got the highest number of preference votes in Colombo? That goes to show to what extent what we talked about earlier, at the very beginning, is prevalent here in the capital district of this country, right? Yeah. So it is very upsetting and disheartening.
What is the future of the SJB members now I think you have 3 sitting in government right now. 2. One who's who's not even a citizen. Diana Gamage, who's how can you forget Diana Gamage, Chris? This is
Yeah, he was given a free trip, no?
No, Vadivel Suresh has not been expelled from the party. Only 3 members have been expelled from the party. That is Mrs. Danagamage, Harin Fernando, and Manusha Nanayakara. I mean, you know, it's a tough one, right? I mean, both Harin and Manusha are dear friends. You know. I mean, we've got into politics together, and you know, we've seen some things in the same light and others not. I don't want to say anything about the case right now. I mean, but you know, Sarath Silva's determination ruling on the Bogolagama matter in 2004 continued till 2000.
So that has been overturned now, right? That is what's been overturned.
Well, kind of, no?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't overturned in that manner.
It sets a precedence.
I mean, this is new president, right?
Yeah.
So whether we will see whether the 3-judge bench, I think Ajunobe Sekara and a couple others, no, 3-judge bench will see this as a precedent and rule the same way. But I mean, the thing is, from the SLMC matter was unanimous.
Yes.
So it's not divided 2-1. It was 3-0. So.
And is the other, I mean, okay, you don't want to comment, but my question would have been, are the cases similar?
I mean, I don't know, Ramesh De Silva is appearing for Harin and Manusha from what I understand.
Right.
And what argument Mr. De Silva is going to make, I do not know. The difference is that when this guy, SLMC guy, what's his name? Nazir Ahmed, he went so-called to support Gotabaya Rajapaksa with when he brought the 20th Amendment.
Yes.
Harin and Manusha went different context. Different context because they went when I mean, I would think Ramesh will argue that they went to help the president to sort of resuscitate the country when it was, sort of falling apart. So the context is slightly different.
But Harsha, once in a while, a judgment gives us hope.
Yes.
Because one of the horse trading you were talking about earlier is enabled by the ability for members to cross over across party lines and do this. It's part of the system change that we are fighting for a different political culture. Don't you think it'll help if that decision is upheld across the board? Because that way, I think you'll be able to at least prevent future horse trading in that nature.
Yeah, I mean, there are two points of view here. I mean, I was blamed a lot at one point that I didn't join Ranil Wickramasinghe to support him.
Not us.
Yeah, not you. But I mean, social media, in droves attacked me. But I told them, look, I am not completely opposed to the president's sort of game plan on taking the economy out of the hole it is in. But I don't agree with the president on his politics. I don't agree with him, ganging together with the Pohottua fellows and sort of. So on that basis, I will do what I need to do for this country in parliament. I don't need portfolios. I don't need to be a minister. None of that. But there was a significant number of people who didn't agree with me.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what I'm saying is there are two camps.
Yeah.
Right? So how the judge is going to sort of balance this, I do not know.
I think...
Harsha, didn't the leadership ask for resignation, or didn't these two guys, that is Manusha and Harin, they didn't give a resignation. They just moved on to the next party, or rather joined Ranil. Did the leader, SJB leader, ask for their resignation?
No, I mean, I was privy to, exactly what transpired, no sort of minute by minute account I can give what happened, right? I mean, we were also sort of in a major argument in our group, what do we do? Because on the 9th of May, after what happened, things started to sort of, we didn't know what was going on. And on the 10th of May, Ranjit Madhum Bandara, Kabir Hashim, Eran Vikramaratne and myself were invited by Gotabaya Rajapaksa to a meeting to sort of discuss whether we would be willing to, take over the government.
To actually take over the government or join as like a coalition and a unity government?
No. What happened was Salia Pires had led the Bar Association had proposed a plan, right? And there was general agreement for that plan. And that plan said immediately bring the 19th Amendment, then remove the executive presidency, have a time plan for that, have elections, etc. There was, clear-cut roadmap.
Yeah.
Now, it was not brought by a political party. That was brought together by lawyers that united under the Bar Association, auspices of the Bar Association, and that is what we wanted to discuss. The meeting started at 8 o'clock. He was in a pair of rubber slippers and a t-shirt walking about. There were two MPs with him. One was Ramesh Patirana, the other was Nalaka Gudaheva. Those two guys were sitting with Mr. Rajapaksa. The four of us were sitting on the other side, and Iran did most of the talking. And at one point, the president said, "But you don't expect me to go in 2 weeks." To which we said, "No, sir, we are not saying that. What we are saying is, let's agree on a plan. Right? We are willing to take on the responsibility, but we are not going to do it without any plan. We have to have some agreements." So when people sometimes criticize Sajid Premadasa, I feel very bad, because that is not what happened.
Yeah,
right? That is not true. That is not true.
The narrative is that everybody came up with conditions, but Ranil Wickramasinghe, in his to save the country, he took it up.
Yeah, so that discussion was happening, you see. That discussion. So this was a Tuesday. Okay, Monday was a 9th, Tuesday was a 10th. And on the, we appointed Iran on our side, they appointed Nalaka from their side to discuss this further. On Wednesday, nothing happened. On Thursday, he addressed the nation, quote unquote, at 7 o'clock or something. And he actually did say, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, that he was immediately going to bring the 19th Amendment. He was going to consider the abolition of the executive presidency. That he was going to do all these things, what was in the BSL letter. That was Thursday night. And Friday morning, we drafted a letter based on our discussions from Monday and his address to the nation on Thursday, and sort of giving out a plan, because we pushed the leader of opposition and we came to some sort of compromise position from where he was and where the country wanted him to be. By the time we took it, we understood that that Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickramasinghe had done a deal previously on Wednesday, and that
so even the discussion was in bad faith.
No, discussion on Tuesday would have been in good faith.
Good faith, and
then Thursday, I think the address to the nation was not in good faith. So that is really what happened. And we were not running away. You know, we said, let us agree on this thing, and he did so. And it was on that on Friday, Hari and Manusha left, and so that is the backstory that a lot of people probably didn't know.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for clearing that up. So let's
we came very close, right? To
absolutely. I think
leaders,
that's, I think people who were paying attention, people who were really fighting for something to happen, that was the opportunity at that moment. Once the current president took over, that opportunity for real change in that moment just vanished. I think now we have to almost back to square one. Nobody's even talking about the abolition of the presidency.
No,
although we are hearing some whispers right now. We are hearing some whispers now.
Out of convenience.
But can we move on to a topic that we really need your help with, which is the governance diagnostic assessment that the IMF gave after refusing the second tranche of the bailout. You came out very strongly against. You're very vocal against. That whole thing. So it said, you basically said the International Monetary Fund has handed down a damning verdict. Verdict is clear. Corruption has permeated every level of government institutions from top to bottom. I know whether that's a quote from you or whether that's a quote from the report. Perhaps the most significant roadblock is financial recovery lies in the government's persistent failure to address its deep-rooted corruption problem. So, I think most of us every day fight the people who say you need economic stability before you have, think about change and governance and all of that. But this is a vindication for me at least, where our position has always been you can't really have true stability built on a foundation of sort of corruption and misgovernance and so on. So, the 16-point plan, you spoke about it in Parliament. And you spoke very strongly against it. If you could explain that to us, so people can understand it a little bit better.
See, what happened is, for the first time, they did this governance diagnostic study in an Asian country, was Sri Lanka, right? Now, there are two teams in the IMF. One team is headed by Peter Brewer that looks at the economics, what do we need to do? Raise revenue, reduce the deficit, do this with the interest rate, do that with exchange rate, etc. So that's very technical, right? SOE reform, etc. Now, there is another team that did this other report. They are not part of Peter's team. They report directly to the head of the IMF. So they are like an external operation almost, right? Now, the original document mentioned the two words corruption vulnerabilities, right? And that meant that there had to be a fix for the problem. Now that fix wasn't coming from the economic targets that were set. That had to come from somewhere else. Now, in the timeline, the governance diagnostic report was to be handed over to the government or published on the 30th of September. On the 27th of September, they were trying to agree on a staff level agreement with the president. Now, what we did was, I think the right thing, is we said, look, if the corruption vulnerability matter is not going to be addressed, then how can you move forward? Now that the report is there is a problem of a 3-day delay. What's the point in agreeing? And then, chronologically there was an issue there. And then the report was going to be released on the 30th. So from what we understand is unofficially this report was discussed and the contents were deliberated upon, and the government side couldn't. I think they were a bit shocked at the report itself, how strong it was, and they were on the back foot, and the president was going away, I think somewhere, one of his many foreign trips that day or the next day. So they couldn't agree.
Next one is your China.
They couldn't agree. And so I did speak with IMF even this evening, today. There is some discussion taking place in Marrakesh, and there is some movement. And I think the second tranche will come because a lot of the things in the governance diagnostic report is to be fulfilled, I think, starting first quarter of next year. Yeah. And I don't think it is appropriate to drag it from now to then, because we as a country, immaterial of which political party we belong to, need to get out of this hole. And for that, I think we need to work sort of in tandem. But if you look at these 16 points, you can break it down into sort of transparency. Right? One is transparency, asset declarations, then procurement to be transparent, to put those things in websites. Yeah. Then if you're giving tax concessions, you need to show who's receiving these tax concessions, what is the cost of these tax concessions, which actually, funnily enough, that the government was then trying to bring a privilege against me to sack me from my position as chairman of the Public Finance Committee, because I asked when the 17-year tax holiday was given, only question I asked was, what is the tax expense? How much is the government losing? And he said, I'll have to call the company and ask and let you know. So that specifically has been brought in there and said, look, you can't just give. If you give this, you have to quantify it and you have to say it out loud. So transparency is one. The other thing is sort of taking action against those who commit these crimes. Right? I mean, a classic case that we are now discussing is the forgery of the stickers, the liquor stickers. So they say the amount is some, tens of billions, right? So what do? You compound it with a 500,000 rupee fine, which is peanuts. Right? And I mean, according to Vijayadas Rajapaksa, the value of the loss is some 80 billion. So how do you deal with it? How do you strengthen the agencies to implement the law? So that's the second point. And a third thing is, I think, stronger financial governance, laws that prevent minister from issuing midnight gazettes. For instance, the sugar, and it is specifically mentioned, right, from 50 rupees to 25 cents. And we know, a lot of us probably know the guy who made the billions, sort of in a matter of a couple of weeks. And not a single cent was, sort of taken back. So those, I think, are on the broad sort of categories these 16 points lie. And unfortunately and shamefully, it had to come from outside, which should have been done by us. So to me, this is a necessary condition, but it is not a sufficient condition. And this is where I completely disagree with the NPP and all those other guys who believe this is necessary and sufficient condition. It is not. Right? I mean, just because you eradicate corruption or try to reduce it to the maximum possible, or rather the minimum possible, that doesn't mean this country is going to grow. It is necessary but not sufficient. Right? So sufficient condition is how to create efficiency in this country, how do you increase productivity, how do you link this country to the rest of the world, how do you break down the walls, how do you build bridges to the the region and beyond. How do we bring investors here? How do we join global production networks? How do we do those, right? So that is how we are going to grow, right? So, but these two things will have to happen together. So this is necessary, but not sufficient. And this is where the SJB parts company with those other guys.
To do all of that, you need legislation, right? Essentially, you need legislation to be passed to strengthen laws or whatever you need to bring in. Does the current parliament have the necessary moral courage or the political will to actually take these steps that are needed? Because it might actually, we know who's in parliament, we know all the corruption allegations against various people and so on. So why would they vote against their own self-interest? Don't you think with this composition, like even if you get the second tranche, that you're really not going to see any meaningful legislation being passed that's going to deliver us that long-term plan that you outlined?
I think you answered your own question.
You
don't have the necessary seats in parliament or decent people.
Well, you need political will, right?
What happened with Kelia and the health?
But this is slightly different. But this is slightly different because now, if we don't get this done, I think there are going to be, consequences. So are those consequences significant enough not to be ignored?
Yeah.
It's for the president. It's a damned if I do, damned if I don't situation.
Well,
well,
that's a choice, right? There's always a.
Yeah. Now,
I think leadership takes moral courage, right? True leadership.
They get the second tranche, but thereafter they have to do these changes.
Having the law is one, implementing it is another.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So looking forward, we certainly don't see an election in the next year. SJB launched Blueprint for the Economy, which is very broad. So what is the economic revival plans in bullet form, and what would SJB have done differently in terms of the IMF, and how would the SJB approach be any different to the one adopted by the president and the central bank governor in tackling the economy? I'm not going to win any votes by saying what I'm going to say now, right? I'll probably lose. But, the governor of the central bank did what he had to do. You see, I was the first person in parliament in 2020 to force the government at the time to go to the IMF. IMF you're sinking. IMF is going to throw you a lifeline, tube. You climb on and get back on board. That is what the IMF is there to do. Right.
They are only there to help countries who are in absolute crisis on their external account. That is what they are there to do. That is why they were established. IMF is not the World Bank. World Bank is there to help you develop, on development loans and things like that. IMF doesn't do that. My conversations with the IMF, they've told us that, some senior people, actually the vice president, I think he's the vice president, some top guy, he was telling us that he's been in this business for 36 years or something like that, and has never, ever seen a country so irresponsible. that we came to the very end, right? We just didn't have any money the day that Sabri had to say that, we just don't have the money. I see that whitewashing exercise has started in Parliament, and I see Mr. Cabral going and saying, look, this is a conspiracy, etc., etc. But now that it is in the public domain, why would I waste money on his book? Right? But now it is in the public domain, the court material, and you should study it. and see exactly what happened, right? I mean, there are some unbelievable documents in there. For instance, there is one dated the 7th of March 2022. In desperation, the senior staff of the central bank drafts the board paper and puts it up to the board, monetary board, telling the governor that we should immediately go to the IMF and not only that, announce to the country and the world that IMF is there as a backstop. Right? That IMF will not let us go completely bust. That there is some game plan that we have, a credible game plan. You will not believe this. Mr. Cabral scratches it out and says no IMF. This is days before we declare bankruptcy, and a couple of days, maybe days before he is removed. Right? There is a letter by the previous governor of the bank, after Indrajit, Lakshman, W.D. Lakshman.
Right, yes.
Saying, look, this is the publicly, the figure we make publicly available on our reserves. This is how much we have. So this is the number that goes in the document. But this is the real number, because you have to subtract these other things in the real number. And the actual number of dollars we have is very much lower than the number that we make public. This is the real number. Please ensure that we are able to manage without default. Right? None of that is acted upon. Right? So they knew that they were in real difficulty when this happened. So when Nandalal came and he inherited the problem, before one of the meetings, I think it was a meeting with the president or somewhere thereabouts, somebody called and asked me, actually Sajid asked me, he said, Harsha, what do you think interest rates will have to go up by if the central bank needs to intervene and fix this problem? I said 40%.
Nice.
And people thought it was a crazy number, but I actually believed it would have to go to 40%. But it did go up to something like 32 or 33. Right? I mean, this was my gut without having all the data in front of me. But it had to be done. Because there was no way out of it. Right? You had to immediately bring aggregate demand down.
Yeah.
Right?
So
and
fiscal tightening.
You had to tighten it.
Yeah.
And you had to sort of depress demand. And by doing that, the economy was going to go negative.
Yeah.
But you can't have the cake and eat it also.
Yeah.
Right? So there is really no point blaming Governor Veerasinghe on his strategy of having increased interest rates, because he had no other choice. Right? So that's why I say I'm not going to win any votes by saying this, because people would accuse immediately saying, but Harsha, look at what happened. SMEs crashed. The businesses
well, I mean,
under.
there's a cause and effect there. I mean, ultimately, without some pain, you were not going to come out of this anyway. There was no comfortable path out, right? I mean, it had to.
The interest rate increase had to happen.
Yeah.
It had to happen. it had to happen. I mean, but the point is, what I find the biggest issue with the IMF way, the game plan, and what I see for my party as a strategy out, is the IMF does not differentiate between tradable growth and non-tradable growth, which I think is a fundamental mistake in IMF's thinking. In that, if we get growth, that's okay. I don't think that's okay. I think growth needs to come from tradable growth, meaning what we produce here as competitive goods, meaning essentially exports, right? So we need to be, by building a highway and putting government money, you can create growth. Rajapaksas created growth that went to 11% after the war, but it was unsustainable.
Yeah. Today there's a thing going around that the highway cost in Sri Lanka compared to world is 3 or 4 times. 3 times. 3 times the world.
So that is the corruption in the equation coming into
But
play.
that gets registered as growth, no?
I guess registered, yeah. So
It gets registered as growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is no point in. So what I'm saying is, tradable growth is not what we, non-tradable growth is not what we want. So construction is non-tradable growth.
Yeah.
So while I appreciate that the construction industry is in grave difficulty, we must try to encourage those people to move, if at all possible, towards tradable growth, which means exports.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll just give you one example. You know, after Mr. Premadasa started the 200 garment factory project, you know, at that time, he was able to bring in 20% of GDP as government revenue, which Gotabaya Rajapaksa brought down to 8%. The Rajapaksas consistently from that time brought it down. I mean, this changed in 1994, if you ask me, right? That's my political view, but I have data to prove what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But just to give you one number, things were moving up, exports were going up. In 1995, Mr. Premadasa had died, but the 200 garment factories were beginning to show results. We exported $3.5 billion. Vietnam also exported $3.5 billion. Last year, we exported $12.5 billion. Vietnam exported $336 billion. Right? Because we were stuck with Mr. Premadasa's apparels. Right? But Vietnam went from apparels to toys to radios, to TVs, to semiconductors, to telephones, and look at Vietnam today attracting every conceivable tech company wants to set up in Vietnam. So that is the ideological difference. And that ideology is the one that we need to change. That is why I keep saying, break down the walls and build bridges. So that is where I disagree with the IMF. And I've told them straight to their face. I said, SJP's thinking is different, is that we will completely focus on tradables. And that is why, I don't know whether you will agree with me or not, but I think there has to be some incentives for the exporters. Right? I mean, taxing exporter profit at 30%. With somebody who is, making the same profit by creating barriers, right? By having high protective tariffs and things like that, is, I think, in my book,
inward
is
looking.
Inward looking.
Inward looking. So you mentioned that you agreed with the central bank governor in much of what he did. But also there were two controversial things that happened. One is the domestic debt restructure, and how the burden was placed solely on the EPF fund, and the other I mean that's got the other part doesn't have anything to do with the governor, which is the privatization of SOEs. The worries that these will be captured by a few, go to the cronies and all of that. Do you feel that the opposition fought enough to on the DDR matter, especially because the activist community was very clear. We felt it was an unfair burden on probably the most vulnerable sort of
we have
who didn't have a voice because we have no say in what happens to that fund. It's completely managed by
It
the.
has the full burden on the.
No, so correct. So we were completely opposed to that, right? I mean, we didn't agree with the burden being placed only on the pension fund. So that is very clear, right? We have even said that we would want to change
But do you have any idea why the private bondholders and banks and were exempt from this? Why they were not even in the conversation?
Now, this is the other thing. There's an asset quality study undertaken. The asset quality study would have shown what banks were in trouble according to the president and others. My God, if you touch the banks, all the banks would have, sort of collapsed. But there is no data to prove that. The data is in the asset quality review. The asset quality review hasn't been made public.
Yeah, people were saying there could be a bank run.
So
make profits.
Yeah. So
exactly.
what banks were in which kind of trouble, right? Would they not have been able to sort of take at least some others burden?
Well, if they're writing off 50 billion in non-performing loans given to like 20 prominent companies and people who could probably afford to pay some of it back, that is where where we feel it's unfair, where there's no
it is
equal application.
Completely unfair. There is no argument there.
Yeah.
Right now, the issue is whether this can be reversed, right? And how do you reverse it? And I think there are ways in which you can do it without sort of breaking agreements that we would have entered into, because once the DDR is done, the international the external restructure also has to happen, right? And if we get into sort of contracts with those people based on others, then it will be very difficult for us to walk away from those contracts. Those are binding contracts, and so on. So, but there has to be a discussion on how to make it more or less, more equitable, right? That's on that. But in the governance report, they are very clear about the EPF. Taking EPF from the control of the central bank, because that conflict of interest has been there for 50 years, and that has to be removed. So they have given a timeline for that as well. So they have.
Right. So moving to the SOE restructure. How would the SJB tackle it? Because I know it's a very contentious issue. Trade unions come out against it.
Yeah.
In general, I mean, the worries that lucrative SOEs will end up in the hands of a few cronies and things like that. I think moves are already afoot. Right, moves are already afoot as people see it. I mean, how do you view the SOE restructure?
I mean, it has been a very sort of a intense discussion in the SJB on SOE reforms, because our trade union sort of groups have been completely opposed, whereas people like myself have been not so opposed, and so we need to arrive at some compromise. I'll take one example to sort of explain where we stand. Between moving from my entrepreneurial journey to politics, for 10 years I worked with the World Bank and the ADB. And one country that I loved working was Bhutan. I worked in Bhutan and I worked in Nepal at the same time. And what we tried to do was to bring private investment into both Bhutan and Nepal to tap in Bhutan 60,000 megawatts of economically feasible generation capacity and 45,000 in Nepal. They are all run of the river. You start from the mountains and it comes down. You tap it. Yeah, hydro. And then export it into India. And early days, the Bhutanese didn't really understand how to write a PPA, and the Indians took advantage. But subsequently, they got smart and they were able to get better PPAs. The point is, it really doesn't matter, who actually owns the generation capacity, right? Because you're getting power at an affordable price, and the excess power that you generate is sold for foreign currency. Otherwise, it just would go waste.
Yeah.
Right. So in Nepal, and what happened in Bhutan was they were quite successful. But what happened in Nepal, there are a bunch of communists there who completely opposed it and start bombing, Prachanda's group, right?
Yeah.
Prachanda's group, those guys, right? And it never really took off. We were never able to get any FDI into Nepal hydro, whereas a lot of money came into Bhutan hydro. And Bhutan's largest export revenue comes from exporting electricity to India. Now you look at that and Sri Lanka. A recent study shows we have about 30,000 megawatts of tappable offshore wind. The Mana Basin or Mana Wind Tunnel has enormous capacity. Efficiency is far better than anywhere else in the region. Now, we have to think about who is going to develop it. Right? Will the Ceylon Electricity Board be able to develop all this? Put in all the capital requirement? Could we even use all the energy, the electricity that is generated? No. So my thinking is we have to look at a South Asia integrated grid, right? And the peak in Sri Lanka is different to the peak in Tamil Nadu. I see no reason why we should not export the electricity we generate to the South Indian grid. I see no reason why we should do that. That does not compromise our national security. If you look at Europe, look at the integrated European grid, right? Countries share the electricity that is generated in one jurisdiction and the other. There's nothing wrong in that, right? So it happens. It is just that our ideology is, my God, we are not going to touch power because it is national treasure and we will protect all of this. That I don't buy, right? So in generation, you have to have private, whether it is local law or foreign, it doesn't matter as long as we are able to use the wind that is just blowing across Mana to put a damn windmill and create electricity and sell the damn thing to India. Why not? Why not? Parakrama Bahu said the same thing, no? I mean, the great 12th century, right? So in generation, I'm fully for opening it up.
And that you could realize that through FDIs.
We have to realize it through FDIs. We have to bring in foreign capital, right? Because have you seen the size of those windmills?
Yes,
Yeah.
massive.
Blades are massive,
It's like massive.
massive.
Yeah, they're big.
We can't find a transformer. You think we can buy blades? Or we are going to talk about some non-existent national security issue and not participate in an integrated grid? That is stupid, if you ask me. And I completely disagree with the NPP on this matter. The second point is the transmission. The transmission shall remain with the state. Under the SJB government, we shall not sell a single share of the transmission. It will be the national, we will own it. The state must own the transmission company because that company will be the one that will procure the generated electricity. That company will say, okay, this year we need 300 megawatts. You can be technology agnostic if you want to, or you can push for a particular type of technology if you want to, given the commitments we have taken under COP26 and all of that, carbon neutrality and all that. We have to go for renewables and we should support it. And the distribution can also be separated out. like LECO, right? All what you want is a quality electricity that is given at an affordable price. Right? I mean, I know in Colombo we get the 230, but go outside and see whether you get 230. No, I mean you run a data logger and see in a 24-hour period how much the volatility is, and whether you can actually run industries at those levels. You can't, right? So therefore, distribution companies can also be broken up. So like LECO 1, LECO 2, LECO 3, LECO 4, it can be comparatively given out on, say, 5-year concession agreements. It happens all the time, right? So that is the way I see that SOE, not as a vertically integrated, massive, ginormous, inefficient entity, but multiple very efficient, dynamic, competitive units that together creates the electricity that we want. So that's just one example I want to take.
Okay. So in a similar vein, Mauro, you had a question, no, about the education, or was it Tassie? You wanted to ask a question, no? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tassie.
This is completely off the topic.
Yeah.
But we saw some good news in the papers recently about medical degrees going to be accepted from various universities. How far away are we from opening branches of foreign universities in Sri Lanka? Because I'm very concerned about our youth having to go overseas for higher education, which we can easily
capture here.
I mean,
exactly.
I mean, I had the distinct headache of heading two committees under Mr. Sirisena on SITEM. So for years that university was closed. For years, the state universities were closed because of this matter. And it's a long story, but I'll cut it short. We agreed on a way forward where SLIIT, which has quite a bit of recognition, was going to team up with SITEM, and my proposal was SITEM to sort of have a sunset clause and SLIIT to have a sunrise clause, with this sort of dovetailing into that, with accepted accreditations from credible entities that would make sure that the quality of the student, the quality of education, the facilities they would have had to ensure, they had teachers and labs and all that to get a quality medical degree for these undergraduates. We had a plan and we agreed. You won't believe that had an eclectic group of people from Parents Association of State University students, Parents Association of Non-State University students, so the Medical Teachers Association, Government Medical Organization, Vice Chancellors of universities. I mean, it was a massive problem. And Mr.
You were the chair. You were the chair.
I was the chair.
You didn't have the agriculture.
No, he didn't. And old Mr. Dr. Neville Fernando, right? When I wrote up, actually, if you're interested, when he passed away, I wrote a full page thing about my experience on the SITEM matter and him in the Sunday Times. It's a full page, right? It gives the whole history. And we were about to implement it when that gentleman who you just mentioned went to meet Sirisena, Mr. Sirisena, and without even giving me a telephone call, after 9 months of work, he reversed it. Yeah, right. So what I'm saying is, there have been multiple attempts to get this going, and finally I see that it seems to have got some sort of state or cabinet approval. But there are certain things, that is, quality has to be maintained, right? So and not only the private medical universities, the state medical universities will have to get accredited. I mean, some schools some universities don't have the facilities. They don't have the teachers, right? So not only all universities.
I think teachers now, I think with the brain drain, I think there are so many vacancies. We talked about it, I think last week. Lecturers leaving.
Yeah, but in other areas of study, they are already here.
Yes.
So it's only medicine.
Medicine.
Because I heard some time ago that Monash wanted to open up in Sri Lanka.
So now they have said no, between 1 to 1,000 ranked universities can open here.
Can open up, yeah.
Is that they can open, or they're just going to
recruit here?
No, recognize their degrees.
No, but then you can't do it locally, no? I mean, you cannot study medicine unless you are...
Physically there, no?
Yeah, I mean...
Okay, so then we need to figure out what exactly that means, isn't it? Because somebody told me, no, that's just the degree that you get from Stanford or wherever and come, that will be recognized.
No, that already has, that is all
Act 16.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm right in thinking that maybe we have...
No, so what I hear is that Lyceum and one other, this Royal Institute or something, will open medical schools as a start. I don't know, that I heard. I don't know how far that is true. But I mean, if
have another gentleman who will come and say something against.
Don't know. So I mean, look at Nepal and all this have this one particular Manipal.
And then
Those
branches in Malaysia.
So I think those might happen.
That's good. It's good news, because I think that's what our country's lacking. All our youngsters.
Yeah.
Get the accreditation, and there has to be quality has to be maintained. That is the difficult thing.
That is
the
yeah. So that is what I kept harping. Accreditation is a must. That accreditation of quality assurance, it is not only for the private medical school, for the government medical school also. So, because I think that's going to move from UGC. If you look at the British Medical Council, there are people who are physicians and economists and accountants, and all those people come together and accredit. And so in Sri Lanka also there is a law, no accreditor. There is some
Accreditation Bureau.
Accreditation.
GGY has that place.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even with the other subjects, you see all over there mushrooming, business studies, computer studies, and all. I'm not even sure those things, the quality of those courses, who is accrediting them, and sometimes.
So an entire infrastructure needs to be built around all of that. We don't have any of that here.
Yeah, so I am 100% with you that an accreditation mechanism has to be established. Otherwise, there is no quality in the degree that you end up getting.
Yeah.
And the poor student ends up losing.
I think as to the timing of this, to get this approval for these private medical colleges couldn't have, they have chosen the right time, I think, because the situation of the country, we have so many doctors leaving,
But the pipeline of doctors coming through that will not
No, I know, but so
end up in hospitals here for the next
Are you opposed to the private medical school?
No, I'm saying at a time like that, I think getting the approval for it
might be easier.
Yeah, because sometimes
Now.
Now.
To easier now.
Yes, don't you think so?
Yes.
Exactly. Everybody's complaining about the lack of doctors.
Yeah.
They're all leaving. They're the first to leave.
Yeah.
You know?
So that means you're so welcome.
So,
but But that's a long pipeline.
Yes.
That's not going to solve anything in the short term.
Certainly not.
But can we move forward? We've taken about an hour and a half of your time. You've been very generous.
Our 45 minutes.
Our 45 minutes. So we'll try to wind up in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
We'll move to a slightly more political discussion.
Okay.
So we had the Deutsche Welle famous interview by the president.
Yeah.
We discussed it at length last week. The whole underlying thing is that he mentioned about the reports from various countries and all of that. Now the Bishops' Conference is actually asking for those reports. He had credentials as a liberal Democrat, as a certain type of politician, gentleman politician, and all of that. We see an about turn in that. I mean, how do you view his tenure as president? His tenure as president. Is this the same? Do you want the mic?
Yeah, coming.
Do you want the mic? I'm trying to word this in a very diplomatic kind of a way. But is this the same person that was in government with you? Yeah.
Which is the real Vikram.
Right.
Vikram Singh, please stand up.
I don't know. I've seen him and somebody here go at each other. No, I think he lost a lot of credibility, whatever it is he had. I mean, you can make a point in a more diplomatic way. I think he crossed the line. I think he knew what he was doing. He actually, I don't know whether you noticed. I noticed that video, the interview. He kept looking at.
Of course, we all noticed it. He was looking for affirmation. That's the word.
Yeah.
He had his group there.
So whoever was, I don't know who was there. So whoever was there knew what the plan was. So what he wanted to do was to show the 6.9 million that he's one of them.
Right, exactly. But the greater point that we want to drive at is that from the day we stood at GGY, we have been saying justice for the Easter bombing victims. Is that something that the SJB can deliver if there is a future SJB government without fear or favor? I mean, whatever investigation, wherever it may lead, is that something that the SJB will commit to?
I mean, I can't here say no. I don't know where. I mean, I am as clueless, honestly, as you are, given all the different, versions of this story.
Is a local investigation ever going to be credible? I mean, now the president has clearly said no international investigation.
No. Sajid Premadasa, as a leader of the SJB, has very clearly said that international investigation is necessary. So, I mean, he has had the courage and the guts to say that. No one else has said it. Everyone else,
President Vikram Singh said it 1 year ago.
President Vikram Singh said it then. He's not saying it now. After he crossed the line,
he's categorically saying no.
He categorically saying, I was his Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs now in his government. I know what about 30/1. No, I know Geneva, Mangala, and I know exactly what happened. I don't want to talk about it here. Right? I know what his position was. I know it. I led the delegation to Geneva once, 34/K. Right? I know the position that we were supposed to take. I know what we were talking to the UN. I led the delegation. Right? So I know. I know what the government's, Mr. Vikramasinghe's position was. Right? So to me, it really surprises me. But it doesn't also because he's now trying to appeal to the 6.9.
Right. So
but you can never be a Rajapaksa, no?
Right. Yeah.
It's trying with the cutouts.
Poor imitation.
He's trying with the cutouts. Quite good.
He is.
On
Yeah.
No, honestly, I don't think he had anything to do with the cutout.
So it's a
Give the
populist
guy a
term.
break. No, I
He's
don't.
the one who doesn't want us to call him Excellency.
Yeah. I don't
No,
think
I'm sure it was done by
Give him credit.
by somebody else, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Issue of credibility
they
apart from everything, apart from being
Lisha?
sounding like a nationalist, I think, these FBI and Scotland Yard and he mentioned Chinese.
Australia, he mentioned.
Pakistani Indian intelligence.
Exists, and
No, the
there's a
reports.
serious issue on credibility.
Yeah, because
I
he
think
actually mentioned
leave
that.
aside all the other nationalistic dynamics. I think that's what really is very problematic
And
to all of us.
And also trying to draw a rift between the cardinal and the Catholic bishops' conference,
backfired again.
which was disproved the next day by the
by the bishops
that was
themselves.
very
Right.
Yeah. I mean, in the morning I walk at Independence, or try to walk 5 days a week. I sometimes don't get all 5 days. And there's this doctor who sometimes I run into, and he chats with me. And the other day, after this happened, he told me, Harsha, I have a patient and he has gone through 40 surgeries. 40. 40 times he has been cut open. Because after the bomb, he's like really badly off. So this is a person who was injured in one of the bombs.
Yeah.
So he's since then 40 times.
So people are still living through that
People
trauma.
are living through this. I mean, if you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, think about 40 times,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
right? And so this is the reality. And to take a position like that goes against,
Even the reaction to Channel 4.
yeah, it was a populist turn.
Whoever, I really don't know who the mastermind was. I mean, various people said various things.
And without an international investigation,
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
So hopefully a future government can at least deliver, because I don't see it happening with the current composition.
Yeah, because I think Sajid Premdas is the only person who has said that he's going to do it. So,
Okay. So let me ask you a final question from me, and then we'll open up to anybody who wants to ask something. The Colombo cocktail circuit, I Magazine circuit.
Yeah.
When you meet people would often say, if not him, who?
yeah.
If not him, who? What would be your answer to that?
Yeah, why not me? I mean, in light vein. I mean, look, don't dismiss. There are people, 22 million people in this country. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who will, sort of rise to the occasion at the right time. Right?
But for that we need an election, right? So
Election.
Right now,
I
do you think?
I don't necessarily share your view that there won't be an election. I think he will not be able to get out of that one.
Okay.
I think there will be an election.
Okay, the reason for it to be so confident, Harsha, is because we had Bajir Abewardhan to throw a little, just try to
Nugget
test
out
the water.
there saying
Test
we
the
don't need
water,
elections
saying,
until there's.
You have to choose. Do you want the election or do you want to go back to queues? Then no, take that. That's just one thing. Then on top of that, all especially the online, which they call online safety bill, actually online suppression bill.
Yeah.
That bill, it's obvious that they're trying to, to
Not
Maybe
enough.
preempting something, preempting a
No,
move.
this is too big.
Too big.
All right.
So there are certain norms even
good to
that
hear.
they will hesitate to violate, because it's a norm. It's a law.
I mean,
not a
you
norm.
postpone the local government, that's another matter.
Yeah.
But you can't postpone the presidential. I mean, there will be chaos here, no?
If they said there's no money,
No money? Harsha?
Collective
Yeah.
was brought up because since he is the as a president he may be immune but not as the finance minister. And under the finance minister, he is answerable and he has to have whole elections. There's no way out. And
Well,
according to the constitution, that's enough.
Yeah.
If they don't have the money,
No, they have allocated the money, no?
But he anyway ceases to be the president now at a certain point.
That is correct. So
then
that
after
is
that
a
it
more
becomes-
constitutional
Yeah.
matter. I think you're right.
And it could be a well. I mean, if he continues, that's a constitutional crisis, full blown.
Yeah.
Because he's
Yeah,
feeling something
absolutely.
should.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the answer is quite clear. Yeah, I think you've just put your hat in the ring. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not right now.
Actually, you're the first political guest that we've had. We've spoken to politicians in the past. We've spoken to Sumandaran, Shanakian,
Dr. Harini,
Dr. Harini came, we
Rai,
Rai and Iran we spoke.
Iran.
And of course you many times.
In our
Yeah, I mean we spoke first that we've done this with Nagananda Kuritak we spoke as well.
When we talk about Dr. Nagananda, a lot of people have different people to say, but one thing he said that I'll never forget, where he said the most important thing is rule of law. And today, with the
He's
way
a purist on
the
that.
way things are going,
Yeah, he's a purist
you
on that.
realize how right he was.
Yeah.
No? Rule of law. He said, first of all, you said the rule of law, correct, in the country. Everything else will fall in place.
Accountability, rule of law.
He was just going on about that that day,
Yeah, and he believes in a complete change to the constitution. He believes that we need a new constitution in this country.
So we've spoken to him, but the first politician here
He was
at the round table.
at the round table is you.
I'm honored. Thank you.
But so that's really it for me. Is there any questions before Alicia does the quote that we do every week? Anybody else? Any questions? Any clarifications? Or Chris is.
Just one thing,
Yeah.
I want to ask you at that point itself,
Yeah.
when you're talking about the three people who might be this issue at the STB, you mentioned quite fondly about, about Harin and Manusha, but you didn't in the same light mention about Diana Gamage. Why is that? Why are you treating her separately?
broke Chris's heart.
Chris's favorite.
Better.
Why the discrimination?
My God, I don't want to say anything.
I mean, you're setting a trap there, Chris. I think
I've known this guy long enough.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right to. Yeah. So, Lisha, you wanna?
No questions?
No other questions. So we'll.
I'm sure you're going to ask.
So if there is an election, you'll definitely be one of the contestants for president.
No. Not quite yet.
In the future, yeah. It's on the
Not
table.
quite yet.
Putting you into trouble. Actually, we spoke to opposition leader twice. As a group, we went and met him.
Right.
And we'd love to extend an invitation to him if he'd like to join us. We plan to have somebody from the NPP, not 1, 2 or 3 here at some point.
We'd like to meet Shanakian. And,
Yeah, we'd love to meet them as well, so we'll extend an invitation to them as well.
So this is how we end our week is I find an appropriate quote that I feel would be suitable for the time and the moment. And with you visiting us today, I just wanted to, I picked 2 quotes explaining why we at GGY 226 days later are still here. The first one is by Rohini Nellakani. We cannot be mere consumers of good governance. We must be participants. We must be co-creators. So you are the one that we are pushing to be the front. And the second one is actually by President Obama. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. So that's out from me.
You always find the right
Things, commitments, spend this much of time preparing for this, and no personal benefit to any one of you. So I think that is appreciated by people. And I wish you,
Thank you.
all the very best.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
A new political party was launched today, right? Any thoughts on the any thoughts on the new party?
Won't waste my time.
One with
With the snake. Well, but the snake should be the sign, but I don't know what the sign is. So Dr. Harsha, thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thanks.
You know, your valuable time. We really appreciate the time that you've spent with us.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
And the participation of the group. The level of participation is
What are you doing next Wednesday?
we'll get more people here.
You just say that Harsha is coming.
But thank you so much. Great conversation. Thanks to the gang as always for turning up. Anu and CK for helping us put this whole thing together. I think that's a wrap for day 226 at GGY. And we'll see you at usual street corner on Sunday for day 227.
One last thing. Who came up with GGY?
GGY?
Gota go yaya.
Yeah.
Gota go home became Gota go yaya.
No, because we are in Timirigasya.
Correct. You ought to go yaya because Timirigasya.
That's right.
So that was shortened from GGY, and now it is good governance.
Actually, we changed it to good governance. GG is now good governance.
Not Gota go.
Not Gota go. He's gone. He's gone.
It's good governance,
You're very good.
Also good governance, which was your government.
Yes, correct.
We want to give it a positive spin
Very
because
good.
Yahapalane has been made a dirty word.
Yeah.
We want to give it a bit of a positive spin on. But thank you so much. I think that's a wrap from us tonight. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.